Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Cami and this is going to be a video tutorial on how to crochet my cozy companion dog sweater. It's my pattern that is available on Etsy and Revelry and the links are going to be in the description of this video. The yarn we are going to be using is Alizé Burkum Batik, which is 100% acrylic. It's a weight 4 yarn and we're going to be using a 5mm crochet hook. You will also need a big button that's at least 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch wide. And we're going to sew it at the very end. This is the measurement chart that you're going to need for this project. The measurements of your pet that we need are around the widest part of the chest, around the neck, from ear to tail, and from the shoulder to tail. So first we are going to chain for as long as our measurement from the dog's shoulders to the base of the dog's tail. So in my case it's going to be 35 centimeters, so I'm going to crochet until the chain measures this much. I ended up chaining 52, and make sure you're measuring your chain while it's not stretched. We need the chain to be relaxed. I'm going to chain one more time, and this is our turning chain, and now I am going to half double crochet all the way across the chain until there are 5 stitches left on the other side. I go to the other side and there are 5 stitches left, and in those 5 stitches I am going to place single crochets. Now I'm going to turn the work, place a single crochet in the first stitch, and then I'm going to place a back loop only single crochet in the next stitch, as well as the next 3 stitches, so 5 single crochets total. After that, I'm going to place half double crochets in the back loops only until I reach the other side. I got to the other side, but I left 1 stitch unworked, and I am going to place a regular half double crochet going through both loops as opposed to only the back loop. So now that the row is complete, we're going to turn the work and chain 1 and place a regular half double crochet, and then place half double crochets in the back loop only until you reach the other side. Leave 5 stitches unworked and place single crochets in the next 4 back loops and a regular single crochet in the very last stitch going through both loops. This is the pattern that is going to repeat throughout the entire body piece of the sweater. I go to the last 5 stitches of the row, so again single crochets in the back loops only for 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then a regular single crochet going through both loops in the very last stitch. So this is what the panel is looking like so far. This is the narrow side with single crochets. This is the wider side with half double crochets. So this is going to be the back end of the sweater. This is going to be towards the neck. So now I'm going to go ahead and complete the same steps over and over until the panel measures 2/3 of the circumference of the widest point of the pet's chest. So in my case, the dog's chest is 45 centimeters around, and 2/3 of 45 is 30. So I'm going to keep going until the panel measures 30 centimeters. This is my finished panel. As I said, it's 30 centimeters wide, and what you have to do now is crochet a border around the entire piece. So make sure you end your last row up where the narrow part is, and we are going to place 3 single crochets in every single corner until we get back up again in the same spot that we started the border. So in the same stitch where we place our last single crochet, I'm just going to place 2 more. While you crochet along the top edge of the project, just make sure to place 1 single crochet in every single one of the rows. I got to the second corner, so I'm going to place 3 single crochets instead of just 1. 1, 2, and 3, and as you can see, I worked into the starting chain of the project. So what you can do now is crochet over the tail, the first end rather, and that will just make weaving in the ends a little bit faster and easier. So now I'm just going to continue along the starting chain, making sure to keep the end in the middle and crochet over it. You can go ahead and crochet over the entire end, but what I like to do is to leave it hanging about halfway through, so then I can just go back with my yarn needle and go back through the same stitches on the other side, so that it's a little bit more secure and it won't come undone as easily. I got to the third corner, so again I'm going to be placing 3 single crochets in the same stitch to round it up. Now I'm at the edge where the half double crochets are, so I will try to put 3-4 stitches into every back and forth situation. So as you can see, my yarn is kind of striping, so whenever the color is changing I just make sure I have 3 or 4 single crochets in each section. I hope it makes sense. In either way, just make sure it's somewhat even along the entire edge. But all I'm trying to say is that the stitch count doesn't really matter over here, so as long as it looks good to you, it's fine. Made it to the corner, so again 3 single crochets. This is what it's looking like so far, and this is our last edge, and it should be the easiest one as well because there are already very well defined stitches on this side. So just go ahead and crochet into the stitches as normal. I get back to my starting point almost, and I am right before the cluster of 3 single crochets that we place in the corner. So I'm going to place single crochets in the first 2 stitches and leave the third one unworked. And what I'm going to do now is chain for as long as the difference between the measurement from the ear to the tail and the measurement from the shoulder to the tail. It might sound a little bit confusing, but it's really just the length of the collar or the turtleneck that you want the sweater to be. Pretty much it's just the measurement from the shoulder to the base of the ear. So in my case, it's supposed to be 10 centimeters. So I'm going to chain for as long as that would be, but I like to chain a little bit more. And because it's not for a client, I'm making it for a family member. It's it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be exact, and I like the turtleneck to be a little bit longer. When I got the desired length, I'm going to chain one more time and single crochet down on the chain until I get back to the body. I single crocheted all the way down, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch to the next stitch along the top edge of the body part, like this, and then I'm going to slip stitch to the next stitch. So we crocheted all the way down from the chain, and then we made 2 slip stitches into the next stitches of this edge. After that, I'm going to turn my work and count 3 stitches from the hook. So this is 1, 2, and 3, and I am going to place a regular single crochet into this stitch. And now I am going to place single crochets in the back loop only of every single one of the next stitches until I get to the other side, on which I will place a regular single crochet in both loops. So we are creating a smaller ribbing pattern for the turtleneck, which will make it a little bit more stretchy and hopefully easier to put on through the dog's head. I got to the last stitch, so I'll just place a regular single crochet going through both loops. I'm going to turn my work again, and whenever I am turning my work where I have finished on a single crochet, I tend not to chain at the end. I find it gives me a straighter edge. So now I'm just going to place a single crochet going through both loops, and then back loop only single crochets all the way down, and we're going to repeat this pattern throughout the entire width of this edge. So we single crochet up and then down, we slip stitch 2 times, up and down, slip stitch 2 times, up and down. And I'll come back to you once I've finished crocheting from here to here. Now that I got to the other side, I am going to keep crocheting all the way from here to here. The only difference is I'm not going to slip stitch because there is nothing to slip stitch to, but the stitch count will remain the exact same other than the joining slip stitches. And I'm going to keep going like this until this entire panel is as long as the circumference of the pet's neck. So in my case, I need it to be 25 centimeters and it's currently about 14-15. So I need to add 10 more centimeters of length like this in this direction. So I'm going to crochet the next row as normal, and I'm going to place a regular single crochet in the very last stitch, and I'm just going to turn my work and place a regular single crochet on top of that stitch and back loop only single crochets across until the last stitch, and then a regular single crochet in that last stitch. It's pretty much the same thing except for the slip stitches on one side. So once your panel measures as much as it needs to measure, we are going to slip stitch both sides of the turtleneck together. I have reached the desired length of my panel, so now I'm going to turn it like this, fold it in half, and I'm going to slip stitch both of the sides together. Just make sure that you finished your last row on the outermost side of the project. So to slip stitch the sides together, I am going to go through the front loop of my stitch. Then I'm going to insert my hook into the outer edge on the other side, and I'm just going to slip stitch, and I am going to repeat it all the way to the other side. So again, front loop, and then I go through the starting chains, and continue doing so across. Once you get all the way down, you can do two things. One thing you can do is you can just fasten off, cut the yarn and weave in the ends, or you can keep crocheting by placing single crochets for until you want the strap that will go under the belly to start. So I would just crochet for about 10-12 centimeters, or about 4 or 5 inches from the neck. Or if you cut the yarn, you can just go ahead and attach the yarn like 10 to 12 centimeters away from the neckline. And actually, I'm just going to keep crocheting to have less ends to weave in. So I'm just going to place a few single crochets along this edge. I decided I want my strap to start at about this point, so I'm going to mark that stitch with a stitch marker. And from here I am going to place 16 more single crochets. Keep in mind this could be any number of single crochets because this is going to be the width of the strap, and I would recommend you do at least 12, or just try to match the amount of stitches you used for the collar. In my case here, this is 16 stitches long, so I'm just going to repeat that for the strap and make it 16 stitches wide. Once I got my desired amount of stitches, I'm just going to turn my work, place a regular single crochet on top of the previous one, and place the next one in the back loop only, and repeat placing single crochets in the back loop only until you reach the stitch marker. So I placed my stitch marker one stitch before I started crocheting for the strap, so I'm just going to place a regular single crochet in this spot over here, turn my work, and start it all over. So it's the exact same pattern as the collar or the turtleneck, and I am going to keep going until this little strap measures 1/3 of the chest circumference of the pet. And after I get to that measurement, I am going to add 2 more rows. So when you get the length that you need, you are going to turn your work, and now we are going to decrease at the beginning and at the end of every row until we are left with 12 stitches. So if your strap is already 12 stitches wide, you can skip this step and just skip forward. I'm going to do a typical decrease, nothing crazy, and then back loop only single crochet until I have 2 stitches left on the other side. I'm going to turn my work and do the same thing. So now I have 14 stitches in a row, so I have to do this decrease round one more time to get to 12. So without chaining, just go straight into a decrease. and single crochets in the back loops. We're going to turn, and this row is going to be the row where we add the buttonhole to the strap. We are going to start this row by doing a decrease one more time. And now we are going to place a back loop only single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to chain 2, and this is going to be the buttonhole. We're going to skip 2 stitches and single crochet in back loop only of the next 1, 2, and 3 stitches. And we're going to end the row with a decrease. And just to be sure, at this point you can take your button that you're going to sew on later and see if it passes through the little hole. Because I'm using acrylic and it's very stretchy, chain 2 works perfectly for this button. So just go ahead and make sure it's not too tight or too wide. After that, I'm going to turn my work again. We are going to decrease and single crochet in the back loops only until we are done with only 6 stitches, and that's going to be the end of the project really. So we start with a decrease, and we are going to treat the chains that we did in the previous round as stitches. So we're going to work into them as if they were regular stitches. So 1 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and in the last 2 stitches we place a decrease. We're gonna turn our work again and start again with a decrease, back loop only single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1 last decrease. At this point I am going to chain 1, and this is how I like to fasten off. So I'm just going to cut my yarn. I will leave a pretty generous amount to make weaving the end a little bit easier. So snip it off, pull it with your hook, and grab a yarn needle. And the way I like to weave in my ends on straps like this one is to make sure the edge is nice and round. I am going to go through one of the stitches below in the previous row where we made the little chain to fasten off, and I'm going to go back and forth there just to make sure it's nice and round. And then I'm going to flip to the other side and carry my yarn below the buttonhole rows just to give myself a little bit more space to work with. And I'm going to weave my end back and forth 2-3 times just to make sure it's very secure. So the strap is done, and now I'm going to weave in the other end. And as I said, I'm just going to go through the same stitches but the other way. I'm gonna cut off the excess. And it's done. It's crochet. The only thing left to do is to attach the button. So the way I'm gonna do this is I am going to fold the piece like so and see kinda at what point the strap falls on the other side, and I am just going to attach my button somewhere on the other side, somewhat close to the edge, like this. I am going to use a little bit of yarn for that. Start on the inside of the sweater. And just go back and forth a few times. Now I'll just make a knot to secure the button in place. And what I like to do, I cut the end pretty close to the knot, Then I grab a lighter and very carefully burn the edges of the acrylic yarn. This will melt the fibers a little bit, so it will be a lot harder for the knot to come undone. But the only thing to keep in mind here that it can make the knot a little bit sharp or stiff. So if your dog or any other pet doesn't have a thick coat, like for example, if you're making it for a Sphinx cat, I wouldn't burn the end. I would just try to weave the end through the stitches because it might irritate their skin because it's not sharp really, but it makes a little bump that can just be annoying or uncomfortable for the pet. So we are officially done. I am going to try to include some footage with the dog wearing this sweater for you guys, but I think it turned out pretty cute. You can flip the turtleneck if your dog doesn't like to wear it like that. And yeah, I think it turned out really cute. So let me know if you like the tutorial. Share in the comments what I could improve in the future because this is the first tutorial on my channel and I'm just getting started, so any feedback is welcome. If you end up making the Cozy Companion sweater, tag me on all the social media you can find me at. And thank you so much for watching. Happy crafting and see you next time!